Every day, more than 100,000 flights take off around the planet. The sky never stops. While you read this, there are approximately 12,000 aircraft in the air simultaneously, carrying passengers, cargo, and burning fuel at 900 kilometers per hour at 40,000 feet of altitude. And yet, when you look at a global air route map, something jumps out. The largest ocean on the planet, the Pacific, looks almost empty. There are no air routes cutting across that blue vastness in a straight line. Planes climb, curve, detour. They look lost. But if airlines spend billions every year optimizing routes, fuel, and flight time, why doesn't any of them simply cut straight through the center of the Pacific? The Pacific Ocean covers 165 million square kilometers. That is larger than all the Earth's landmass combined. Every continent would fit inside it with room to spare. A direct route from Los Angeles to Tokyo, drawn as a straight line on a regular map, would cross that void for roughly 8,800 kilometers. Seems simple, but here's the paradox. The more airlines grew, the more planes they put in the air, the more trans-Pacific routes they opened, the more they realized the obvious path was actually the most expensive, the slowest, and the most dangerous. The size of the Pacific is not an invitation. It is a trap, and the biggest companies in the industry learned that the hard way. Today, we are going to analyze why planes avoid crossing the Pacific in a straight line. We will look at the real geometry of the Earth and how it redefines the concept of shortest path, at the invisible winds in the upper atmosphere that can be worth 80 minutes of flight time and millions of dollars per year, and at the safety regulations that determine where a plane can and cannot fly, and that make the Pacific one of the most hostile spaces on the planet for commercial aviation. The first great deception starts with maps. When you look at a world map, the flat one hanging on a classroom wall, distances seem obvious. But the Earth is not flat. It is a sphere slightly flattened at the poles, technically called a geoid. That changes everything. The shortest distance between 2 points on a sphere is not a straight line on a flat map. It is a curved called a Great Circle route. The Los Angeles-Tokyo route, correctly traced on a globe, climbs toward Alaska, passes near the Aleutian Islands, and descends toward Japan. On a flat map, it looks absurd. In reality, it saves up to 1,400 kilometers compared to the visual straight route, the equivalent of 2 hours of flight and tens of thousands of dollars in jet fuel per trip. The second mechanism is even more valuable: jet streams. These are rivers of wind in the upper atmosphere between 9,000 and 12,000 meters of altitude that can exceed 320 kilometers per hour, nearly half the cruising speed of a Boeing 777. They blow from west to east in the northern hemisphere, exactly in the direction of Asia to North America. A Tokyo-Los Angeles flight that hitches a ride on these currents can shorten the journey by up to 80 minutes and save between 15 and 20% of fuel per leg. Across a fleet of 50 aircraft flying that route daily, that represents annual savings exceeding $200 million. That is why the Tokyo-Los Angeles flight averages 10 hours and 20 minutes, and the return flight, Los Angeles-Tokyo, takes 11 hours and 40 minutes. Same distance, different wind. The plane flying against the jet stream is literally swimming upstream. The third mechanism is the most surprising: regulatory safety. Every commercial aircraft operating over the ocean must follow rules called ETOPS, Extended Range Twin-Engine Operational Performance Standards. In plain terms, the plane can never be more than a set flight time away from an alternate emergency airport. Depending on the aircraft's certification, that limit is 120, 180, or 240 minutes. The center of the Pacific Ocean has stretches of more than 4,000 kilometers without a single runway. Any plane that attempted to cross that region would violate regulations and place hundreds of lives on a panic button with no way back. In 1983, Korean Airlines Flight 007 was shot down after straying from its route and entering Soviet airspace over the Sea of Okhotsk, an area close to the northern trans-Pacific routes. 269 people died. The incident exposed a structural flaw in oceanic navigation at the time. Positioning systems were imprecise, routes over the North Pacific were poorly monitored, and communication protocols were fragmented. In response, the United States opened the GPS system to civilian use in 1984, a decision directly motivated by that disaster. But the legacy ran deeper. It proved that flying over the Pacific without support infrastructure is not merely inefficient, it is lethal. And today, 40 years later, the stakes are higher, planes are heavier, routes are longer, and trans-Pacific traffic has tripled. The industry's response was to redraw the board. Airlines began investing in increasingly advanced ETOPS certifications. The Boeing 787 Dreamliner was certified for ETOPS 330, meaning it can fly up to 330 minutes away from an alternate airport, opening routes that were previously technically forbidden. With that, journeys like Sydney-Vancouver and Auckland-New York became possible without intermediate stops. The Auckland-New York route is approximately 16,200 kilometers, one of the longest in the world, and was only made viable by the combination of the Dreamliner, new safety certifications, and the reassessment of polar routes. The surprising detail: some of these routes pass so close to Antarctica that passengers can see polar ice through the window while flying from one continent to another in record time. The Santiago-Sydney route, for example, is one of the few in the world that genuinely crosses the South Pacific, and it works precisely because it grazes the edge of the polar circle, where distances are mathematically shorter. The vulnerability of this bet is real. Any extreme climatic deterioration in polar regions, combined with an increasing frequency of severe weather events, could make these routes operationally unstable, and there is no mapped Plan B. While major Western carriers build their strategy brick by brick, Asian airlines, especially Japan Airlines, ANA, and Korean Air, are quietly consolidating an advantage that money alone cannot solve: geographic position. Tokyo, Seoul, and Singapore are naturally situated at the inflection point between jet streams and the Great Circle routes of the North Pacific. That means these carriers operate their trans-Pacific routes with structurally superior efficiency, not through technology, but through geography. Japan Airlines carried more than 36 million passengers in 2023. Korean Air is finalizing a merger with Asiana Airlines valued at $1.4 billion, creating an Asian giant with unprecedented trans-Pacific capacity. The race has already begun, and the starting line is not the same for everyone. The Pacific is not an engineering obstacle. It is a mirror. It reflects everything the aviation industry has yet to resolve: the tension between efficiency and safety, between technological innovation and physical limitation, between commercial ambition and geographic reality. The companies that bet on extreme routes are going all in on certifications still being tested, on aircraft still being evaluated, and on markets still being formed. There is no clear Plan B. The longest route in the world is not an achievement. It is a bet still in play. If you want to keep understanding the real money that moves global aviation, subscribe for more analysis. If you enjoyed this content, don't forget to comment, subscribe, and hit the bell to get new notifications. See you next time.